Breaking news, a New York judge has ordered President Trump to appear for sentencing on January 10th. The judge writing, quote, "This court finds that neither the vacatur of the jury's verdict nor dismissal of the indictment are required by the Presidential Immunity Doctrine, the Presidential Transition Act, or the Supremacy Clause." We'll get into that and more. Let's bring in our legal guest, former U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Newsmax contributor, former Chief Counsel of the Senate Rules Committee, Joe diGenova. Joe, I know you're the best in the business at breaking this stuff down. For a simpleton like me, could they actually try to sentence this guy to jail next Friday?
No, I don't think that's what they're going to try and do. I think there's going to be some other alternative the judge is going to find, because I know he thinks that that would be absolutely unacceptable in light of the election results and in light of the will of the American people. But make no mistake about it, the courts in the city and the state of New York are at war against Donald Trump. There's no better evidence of that than the latest appeal that came down from the Second Circuit, the federal circuit, upholding the defamation case against him, in which he was awarded, civil damages were awarded to E. Jean Carroll. This is a continuation of this lawfare. The case now in front of Judge Merchan, who has now ruled that there's going to be a sentencing proceeding on January the 10th. It is inconceivable to me that any judge in his right mind would continue with these proceedings. But that's who Judge Merchan is. This is an example of why the Supremacy Clause is so important to allow our president to conduct his duties of office. I don't know what other steps the president's attorneys may take, like filing a writ of habeas corpus in federal court and trying to prevent the proceeding, given the absolute antipathy that the New York courts, both state and federal, have shown the president. I just assume he would lose even in federal court. The courts of New York, state and federal, have decided that they're going to try and destroy Donald Trump no matter what the American people think or say.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Another lawyer, Joe, had told me that, hey, you know, even if Trump can't appeal until there's a sentence, and then more than likely, if he does appeal, you know, that anything would be stayed anyhow. And others have told me, well, maybe they'll give him a big fine or something like that. What's the worst thing that could happen in your view?
Well, the worst thing that can happen is for this to continue. It should have been dismissed. So now that the worst thing has already happened, the next step is, what kind of sentence is Judge Merchan going to impose? Or is he going to try and figure out a way not to impose a sentence and to impose some sort of vacation of the proceedings until later, until 4 years later, like an indefinite postponement? It's very, very difficult to conceive of what Judge Merchan could possibly do under all of these circumstances. Because again, we have a driven jurist. This is not a judge interested in the equal administration of justice. Remember, he's politically compromised. He gave donations, political Democratic donations, in violation of New York state law. His daughter is one of the biggest fundraisers for Democrats, including the Bidens and others. This is an absolutely disgraceful situation, which the courts of New York, by the way, could have dealt with. They could have recused Judge Merchan from this case. They could have assigned it to somebody else. They chose not to do that. Ask yourself this question: why did the courts of New York allow a case like this to stay in the hands of this judge, knowing what the public perception would be, which was absolutely reasonable? He looks like he's a biased judge because he is a biased judge. And yet the courts of New York did absolutely nothing about it.